Hello and welcome to Kushti TV, always the straight talking YouTube channel where my specialist subjects are boxing and golf, and I delve into other areas of interest. Well, I've gained a little bit more interest into true crime recently, so this TV is not going to be anything about boxing or golf. It's going to be a true crime in which I have a little connection with. Yes, I'm going to start with true crime. It was an appalling crime that happened when I was 7 years old. It happened in 1978 in a little town in the countryside, I believe, in Nottinghamshire, Midlands, Stourbridge, and it involved the most brutal, saddest, horrendous murder of a poor little 13-year-old paper boy by the name of Bridgwater. Yes, of course, what would I know about that at 7 years of age? Well, it didn't just disappear, that case, because it gathered massive momentum throughout the decades, and it still has to this very day. Yes, so why did it gather so much momentum? For you younger viewers, I'm sure a lot of you older viewers would be more on it and maybe remember some of it, but I'm going to bring it all back to light. Yes, the poor little boy was just delivering his papers, getting his pocket money, bless him, you know, doing a job, old school stuff, you know, instead of kids holding their hand out for pocket money, and as they often do today, this little boy was doing his chores, delivering people's papers at their pleasure, and him picking up his little bit of pocket money, bless him. He was on his last delivery, one of his last deliveries, and he delivered a paper to an elderly couple at called Yew Tree Farm, and the old elderly couple was at home, and poor little Cole had stumbled upon something that he shouldn't have done, and I believe it was an housebreak or a robbery, you know. And we don't quite know if they forcefully went in, but he had seen something going on, and he had met his death by the way of a gunshot wound to the head, because the police believe then, and still believe to this day, that they knew the culprit. So that's where his poor little sad life ended. His parents anxiously looking at the clock, waiting for him to return. His dad Brian recalled, he just thought it was a little late, looking around, and somebody said, "Oh, there's been an incident up the road with a young lad." Can you imagine the shock, the horror, the horrendous of that moment for those poor parents? So it was one of the most horrendous, shocking crimes ever to hit Great Britain. So, of course, we've got to find the culprit, and good policing is needed. And so the investigation starts, and the only person seen, a witness sees somebody turning in a blue Vauxhall Viva car, dressed in uniform, into the lane of Yew Tree Farm. Now, so Midlands Police, and whatever area that place, in the Midlands of course, were on this Vauxhall Viva. They narrowed it down in a 50-mile radius to, I think, around several cars, and they actually narrowed it down to a Vauxhall Viva right in the very village, neighbouring village, to where Bridgwater lived, and that was to Mr. Hubert, commonly known as Bert Spencer, an ambulance driver. So, car, Vauxhall Viva, uniform, matched the description, turning in at Yew Tree Farm. And he became a prime suspect in this case. He lived just a few doors down from Cole, and it was early believed that Cole Bridgwater had recognised him taking items from the house in the burglary, and to silence him he used the wicked violence of a shotgun and end his poor little life. So that's where it was going, prime suspect. And up the road, about an hour away from this house, we have a little gang of criminals running around, one in the name of Vincent Hickey. Committed a crime in his car. The car was registered back to his girlfriend's address, you know, trying to be a professional, complete amateur. I think it was a burglary and a robbery. Got caught, arrested, of course, found the car, found his whereabouts. Now, in his attempt to get bail and some leniency, he pointed his finger at others. So he went about grassing, and when the others that he pointed a finger at got pulled in, one of them, the gang, got badly interrogated by what should have been fair policing. He was beaten, a huge amount of deprived sleep, huge amount of salt on his food. He had to resort through drinking water from the toilet system, you know, from the place where we put it. So he's drinking that in his desperation. He's denied any access to family. He's a middle-aged man, but he's denied access to family, friends, phone calls, and denied a solicitor. And so much that he confesses that actually not the crime that Vincent he got pulled in for. He confesses to being at the Cole Bridgwater Yew Tree Farm, Cole Bridgwater murder. He claimed he was upstairs whilst the other three were downstairs, and he heard the bang. And anyway, that's where it all stemmed from. He, of course, got his solicitor retracted from that, and the police and the system didn't want to hear any of his retracting. They just went through with it in court, and he was, once his confession was supposedly done and signed, yes, they were all found guilty. James Robinson, known as Jimmy Robinson, 25 years in prison. Vincent Hickey, the bloke that tried to get some leniency, put others in to get himself out and to gain some bail, 25 years in prison. Patrick Malloy, the Irish gentleman that tried to retract his statement that was interrogated, 12 years for manslaughter. And wait for this one, just 16 years of age at the crime. And Michael Hickey, 17 on the sentencing, was only 16 years of age, sentenced to Her Majesty's pleasure indefinitely. Yeah. So that was it. Case sealed, but right from the very off, Michael Hickey's, you can imagine this, he's only 17-year-old. He's only, at the time of the shooting, he's only 3 years older than Cole Bridgwater. Had they not lived an hour apart, I can't help but think that they potentially could have went out to the park and had a game of football. You know, the older lad looking after the younger lad having a kick around or something like this. Yeah? Or fishing, whatever the case may be. They could potentially, just 3 years apart, when Cole was murdered, Michael Hickey was just 16 and at 17 sentenced to Her Majesty's pleasure indefinitely. So where the case sort of continued going was that of Michael Hickey and his mum. His mum, Anne Whelan, vowed, screamed over in the court when he was sentenced. She said, "I will fight." And fight she did. She fought for justice for her son, and to bring, you know, her son justice. She believed he was innocent. Yeah, so momentum was picked up by Anne, and you know, she was gaining some motion, and this conviction that she's trying to overturn of her sons had met courts, petitions, press, etc. on numerous occasions. Now, at this stage, this is my connection, a small connection with the case, totally unbeknownst to me. In London, my side of London, Unsolved, I met a fella in, slightly befriended him, a nice fella by the name of Reggie. Now, Reggie was a Brummie based in London. He's now a relation to Michael Hickey, and Vincent Hickey is a cousin, but I don't know this at this stage. And to one day I pick up the paper, and Reggie's, I think it was the Sun or the Mirror, is one of the nationals, and I picked up the front page, and there is Reggie went over in the betting shop. I knock around, have the odd beer with a little bit. He's in the front page, and I read through, and it's those boys, meaning his cousins and Jimmy Robinson and Pat Malloy, those boys may have been bad boys, but they didn't murder a child. I then read through, it turns out that Reggie given evidence saying that Vincent would have known the area of Yew Tree Farm. But what I didn't know at the time, and I've since learned, that Vincent Hickey had come to London, just outside of London, Greater London, a place called Rickmansworth, just northwest of the city, and committed a robbery. And again, he was looking for some leniency, and he got 2 years suspended sentence, and Reggie got 4 years in jail. And this is where Reg had factured the story, saying in the top of a revenge, saying that that Vincent Hickey would have known the area of Yew Tree Farm. That's all he said, he would have known the area. But it was enough to cement a bit more implication, you know, involvement, potentially. And I think Reg had done wrong there. But he did retract it, he'd done the right thing. You can see his reasons, he'd stitched him up, he got 4 years. Yeah, but so Reg come forward, national paper, and done the right thing, and said that they're not guilty of this. And so I knew Reg. That was my first connection. I was, I'm a Romany gypsy, and I used to travel around a bit. I still do a little bit. And I wasn't married at this stage, and I took my truck and my caravan, and I went out travelling alone. And I met some friends in the Midlands, in Birmingham. I have some aunties from Birmingham who married my uncles from London. So they have family up there. So he gave me somewhere to stay in this little place called Hollywood, just outside of Birmingham. A nice little village, about 8 miles. I think it's southwest of the city. Anyway, so I now need to make a bob or two. So I go out canvassing, knocking some doors, tap tap. And when one opens, I apply my trade. Would you like to work doing, sir or madam? I was just general gardener, doing some garden work. I think I was about 20, 19 maybe, 18. Anyway, this kind lady and gentleman undoes the door and says, yeah, we'd like that garden rubbish removed, and we'd like that one trimmed up, and and all the bits that go with it. Yes, that'll be £55. So back in those days, nice bit of wages. Example, of course. And as I'm doing this edge trimming at the front of this nice house in Birmingham, just outside of Birmingham, Hollywood, this lady comes by and goes, "Hi Fred, I saw Anne on the TV the other day." So I initially said to Fred, this lovely Irish gentleman, a real pleasant man, I said, "Is your wife famous?" And he went, no. He said, "My wife's not famous. My wife's often on television protesting for her son's innocence." He said, "Her son is Michael Hickey, the convicted murderer of Bridgwater." So I went, "Really?" I said, "Well, I know Reggie Hickey." So he said, "Right, put the tools down, come in. Let's have some lunch. Annie, come here. He knows Reg." And they made me, you know, it was a sort of a memorable moment in my life. And this case, they made me so welcome. We sat down, as I say, we had a complete dinner and all the bits that go with it, and tea and biscuits. And they were real. This Fred, this Irish gentleman, Fred Whelan, I believe his name to be, because her name is Anne Whelan. So I'm assuming his name was Whelan. A real pleasant man, and as was Annie's wife, Michael Hickey's mother. So that was my connection. So I took some interest in the case then, and Michael Hickey done the longest ever protest on the rooftop. Some of the prisoners were coming out for 3 or 4 days eating chicken legs. Do some of you guys remember that? Early 90s, I think, mid 90s. They're doing this as I say, summer was a bit of a gimmick, but Michael stayed in there for 89 days on a rooftop. It's the longest rooftop protest, I think, ever, certainly in Britain. 89 days, that's 3 months, isn't it? Yeah, 90 days is 3 months, so he's 3 months on the rooftop protesting his innocence. By the age he was of 34, doubled his life now, bear in mind, 17 years in there, he was offered parole, Michael Hickey, and he said, no thank you, I don't leave this prison as a child killer. Okay, you got it, just a child himself almost, and he said, I don't leave this prison as a child killer. And that's how this case continued. Sadly, Pat Malloy, I felt some serious injustice for the man. A criminal he was, you know, but he wasn't a child killer. 25 years, you know, he doing other bits of crime, but it didn't warrant. You know, imagine the name tarnishing and, you know, what he had embraced from the police. You know, the torture for him to commit such an horrendous crime of being there. You know, you can imagine what he's gone through. And sadly, Pat Malloy, I think, died, sentenced in 79, just 2 years later, died in prison, and only a young man. So that I feel was an extreme injustice and very, very sad. James, Jimmy Robinson, yeah, very sad, 25 years, again, a criminal. Apparently he didn't have reputations for being violent criminals. You know, they might nick something off you or something, but I don't think they were particularly violent criminals. I didn't see too much evidence of any violence. They were just criminals, and okay, bad guys, but not 25 years child killer bad. So I felt extremely poor for Jimmy Robinson, of course, a sad, sad case. Come out, eventually got freed, and I think about 10 years later, 2007, he got cancer and sadly died, so he wasn't an old man either. So an injustice and a sad end to Jimmy Robinson's life. Vincent Hickey, well, come on Vincent mate, you going to do the crime. I don't want to see you get convicted as a child killer when you're not. That's not nice, but slightly sorry for you there. But if you're going to go crime committing, mate, do your crime, take your punishment. And I suppose in your case you've done your fair due of punishment there. And it was reported that he got an heroin addiction whilst in there, so I suppose you've served your punishment for being a naughty lad both sides of the fence, eh? So yeah, I can understand that. A little bit sorry for you there all the way around. Michael Hickey, extremely disappointing case, as I say. Okay, let's pretend he's a criminal. Let's say that Michael's a criminal, yeah? 16 years of age, he's been led on. His older cousins, middle-aged men with him, you know, in their 40s. How bad a criminal can you be at 16? Well, let's say this, there's plenty of time to learn, isn't there? As I said earlier, this boy could have been, if they were an hour apart by car in the Midlands, they could have been playing football together. One is brutally murdered and a paper round, the other one is convicted of his murder. So I'll tell you, in this case, he's nearly the highest end of an injustice. So Michael Hickey, you know, I really, really did feel for you, me old mate. As I say, at the age, let's get it right. Let's look at a lot of us. Look at myself when I was 16, 17. I look at others and I think that there's so much time for improvement, isn't there? So whatever your criminal activities were, of course, you weren't a child killer, and that was rightfully proven. Yes, I feel really sorry for you. But of course, the biggest, saddest victim of all here is little Carl Bridgwater and his family and his parents. You know, I go through this case and I'm now a father of 5 and a grandfather of 4. So, yeah, an adopted son. So I have 6 children, 4 grandchildren, and I've seen them all go through that age. I used to love watching them do something like wash a car or trying to sell something to make a bob. Doing a paper round. just getting his few bob. And a human being's greed, yeah, they commit a crime, and their fear of their own life being interrupted, they can then take that life of a child. It angers me. It's horrible. Yes, so we want to see justice. We have bad policing to see injustice, but we now got to see justice. How can we see justice? We now need good policing. We need good policing to solve and open this crime. We don't want bad policing with bad policing. We don't want bad policing 40 years ago to be washed under the carpet and say, well, we got it wrong there and we won't come out. Now get yourselves out your shell, yeah? Get out from under the mat. Don't brush it under the mat. Get yourself out. The British policing system. We pay our taxes. Yes. Okay. We fell foul of the law. We pay our crimes. And with time or whatever. You have messed up as police. You're human beings like us. Some criminals this side, some normal, but taxpayers, we want a system. So let's have some justice for poor little Carl Bridgwater, yeah, and his family. That's what we're asking. Bad policing, let's do good policing. Well, now allow me please to turn a page and look at the original suspect. Now I'm not going to say he's guilty because that's down for a court, but what I'm going to lay bare is the facts. Yeah, okay. This is eyewitness statements. A gentleman in a Vauxhall Viva car and a uniform was seen driving into Yew Tree Farm. Bert Spencer owned a Vauxhall Viva and he was an ambulance driver that wore a black uniform. He had a passion for antiques. He used to have a shop where he sold them. A passion with a view of making some money, I believe. That's why you have an antique shop, that's why you buy and sell. So that much we know. He lived in number 21 and little Carl Bridgwater lived in number 25. When asked if he knew Carl Bridgwater, he denied knowing him. 4 doors down, ambulance driver, wouldn't be a shy bloke, would he? He'd be a people person, you would think, out there with people, meeting lots of people. But he didn't know this little boy that went about his paper round, coming in and out of his house and played around with the other kids as per norm. He didn't know him. Quite strange. Anyway, but that's his words. He denied knowing him. And he lived just 4 doors down. Yeah, 6 weeks after the conviction of the wrongful fall. So Vincent Hickey, Michael Hickey, Pat Malloy and Jimmy Robinson are convicted. 6 weeks after, Bert Spencer, the ambulance driver, that was initially the first suspect in Carl's murder, shoots his best friend, Hubert Wilkes, dead with a shotgun in the head on a settee. This is the very next door farm, very next door to where Carl Bridgwater was found dead with a shotgun wound to the head on a settee. Coincidental? Spencer's wife said that on the night that he shot his friend Hubert Wilkes, there was mention of Carl Bridgwater. So they were talking of Carl Bridgwater's, talking of him. You know, what were they talking about? We don't quite know. But something triggered him into a murderous rage. Something triggered him into a murderous rage. He admits that he had shot. He got to the point of anger and he just went a blur and a blank. He remembers everything up to it, supposedly, all the reasons why, but he don't remember the actual shooting. But it's very next door Yeah, so Cole was shot in the same way as I explained earlier. His alibi, the ambulance station shift, the alibi now for Bert Spencer, the ambulance station shift, where he was working, the papers got lost. Conveniently, mistakenly, sod's law. That we don't know. But these shift papers to be clocking in and out got lost. One of his female workers, I think it was his secretary in the office, had said he'd taken dinner. But he admitted taking dinner sporadically because he was an ambulance driver. So it could have been 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. So he's cast iron alibi and the papers to prove his clocking in and out went missing. Yeah, so his wife hasn't spoken, we're talking about Spencer's wife now, hasn't spoken about this case except from recently when he's now done a documentary and a book, and she just said he just didn't look in a very good mood that day. He had pinned some clothes to the line, or the old washing line pegged some clothes to the line, and they went out to celebrate somebody's birthday that night, a friend. They went out, done so, come back, and the cold Bridgwater was main 10 o'clock news, and his wife said to him, and they went to bed, "You haven't killed Cole Bridgwater, have you?" And he says, "No," but he says, "You do know they'll come looking for me, yeah? You do know that, it's in my patch." These are the words of his wife. Now, Brian and Janet Bridgwater stated in 2018 that they know killed their son, but they have no hope that they'll ever see justice. Now, what I would like to see, I'm not a judge, and I'm not a jury, and I'm not a police officer, but what I would like to see here is, well, the evidence that's been put, that I just put to you, these facts, his car, his papers getting lost, his love for antiques, he's living next 4 doors down from little Cole, shooting a best friend in the same fashion, the words of his wife. His daughter actually stated she used to play with Cole, so he didn't even know the little children that played with his own children. He didn't have any recollection of that. All these circumstances, along with many more, the driver seen with a uniform on, admitted owning shotguns, admitted knowing New Tree Farm, and admitted knowing the farm next door where he shot. Of course, he knew that where he shot Mr. Wilkes. So all of these evidence, I would like to see the police get to work and lay charges and get it out in court, and then and therefore, if Herbert Spencer is deemed not guilty, rightfully so, sir. You're now getting to an age, he's now getting to an age where carrying this weight, this burden on his back, surely now it would be time for him to see a court system that frees him, or we see a court system that makes him guilty or frees him. But surely the police system and the justice system owe to Brian and Janet Bridgwater and the loving memory of their poor little innocent son. Surely we owe the police justice system, we as a nation, owe them a chance to see some justice done for their poor little boy who just went out to get a couple of bob and met that most horrendous end. Sad. God bless you, son. Thanks for tuning in. Click and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Should Spencer be brought to justice, at least to trial? Should he be brought to trial? I think that's the right word. Should he be brought to trial? Click and subscribe. Give me some comment, some feedback. Let me know. See you next time.